Welcome into the Landon Tangwell Show and the first episode of Big Ten 1v1, where we give you guys the most important position matchups to be on the lookout for this weekend. Today, I got 4 matchups for you guys. Starting out at the number 4 battle to watch. And this kind of on upset alert on the horizon here. The Northwestern rushing attack versus the Penn State rushing defense. Now, Northwestern is averaging about 200 yards on the ground per game this season, and they have a very multiple rushing attack. They'll run outside zone, inside zone, gap scheme where they're pulling blockers. They do a lot of things, a lot of variety in that attack. And the Penn State rushing defense has been a little suspect up to this point. Penn State allowing 228 yards rushing on the ground in Big Ten play so far this year. And really, you look at it, the Penn State defensive tackles have been really underwhelming. They are kind of undersized, and so Jim Knowles does a lot of slanting and moving the guys around to try to make up for that, and they have gotten gashed a little bit. And a lot of times it's easier when you have good linebackers behind you to fill those gaps. Well, Penn State's star linebacker Tony Rojas is out for the year with a big-time injury, so Penn State is dipping deep into the depth chart to fill that linebacker role. So I have some worries about if Penn State can slow down this Northwestern rushing attack, because that's kind of been their issue. They were giving up 10, 12, 15 play drives to the UCLA offense, which is not a good offense. And so Penn State's defense just could not get off the field against Oregon and UCLA. They cannot allow Northwestern to do the same thing to them. So we'll see. And then I think that little extra X factor in this game is Preston Stone, Northwestern's quarterback. He's got some legs. He was scrambling a lot when he played UCLA, and if he sees a hole in the passing lane, he will take off. So you got to have contain on that rush too. He will get involved with his legs. All right, number 3 battle to look out for. Indiana's offensive line versus this Oregon defensive line. Now, this Indiana offense thrives off of the short passing game and their rushing attack. It's a ton of RPO stuff. I know everybody loves that word, run pass option. And even though Indiana's passing attack is looked at as this lethal, high-level passing attack, I really feel like it's the rushing attack that makes that offense hum and kind of allows that Indiana offense to hit those short, intermediate passes. And like I said, a lot of times, if Mendoza looks out and he sees, and it's RPO, and he sees some off coverage from those DBs, he zings that out there every single time to that quick out, that little hitch route. He loves getting the ball out. Now, Indiana, their rushing attack, through their first 4 games, absolutely dominant. They went 309 yards, 313 yards, 301 yards, and 312 yards. Did not go under 300 rushing yards in their first 4 games, and they averaged 55 points in those first 4 games. Now, versus Iowa 2 weeks ago, 104 rushing yards, 20 points scored. Now, a little caveat to that is that to end the game, Indiana took about negative 50 rushing yards there because they took a safety and they were trying to drain the clock. But still, 150 rushing yards is a far cry from the 300 that they were averaging. So Indiana's passing offense relies on the ability to nickel and dime down the field. And if you are running the ball at will for 5-6 yards a pop, it's easy to then say, hey, we're going to be able to get it out to our wide receivers. They're worrying about the rushing attack. Let's get it out to them in space. The linebackers are creeping up a little bit. We're going to quick slants over them right over top of their head, and then they hit their shot plays every once in a while. You will see Mendoza air it out, from time to time, but that's not their game that they live in. It's all short stuff. So if they struggle to run the ball, that nickel and diming down the field starts to become a lot easier to defend if you are this Oregon defense. So how I look at it, if Oregon can shut down the Indiana rushing attack, I think to a degree they shut down the Indiana offense as a whole. And obviously it's going to be really loud out in Eugene. I think that's something that factors in too, is that you got to go silent cadence. So the offensive line for Indiana might be a little bit slower off the ball. You're losing a step there. All something to look out for this weekend. My number 2 battle to look out for, flip the sides. Oregon's offensive line versus Indiana's front 7. Now, coming into the Penn State game, there was some questions of, can Oregon truly run the football against a good front 7? They answered that question with authority. 176 yards on the ground against what was thought to be a top 10 Penn State defense. That was before Nico went ahead and just took an axe to that defense. But Oregon's making a case for the Joe Moore Award, the best offensive line in college football. Their interior with Poncho at center, and then you got Pregnon at right guard, some big people movers. And then Yulee at right guard, Pregnon's at left guard. Yulee's at right guard. Yulee can get dented, even against Penn State and even against some Northwestern. He would get pushed back from time to time. So I think that's the one place you look to attack if you are this Indiana front seven. That's the weak link. But both tackles, World and Harkey, are fantastic run blockers. Oregon's right tackle, Harkey, loves to bury dudes in the dirt. He has a extra nastiness to him where he goes just a little bit through the whistle from time to time. So be on the lookout. If you're Indiana, don't take that bait from Harkey. He's gotten into a couple matchups where he almost draws a personal foul. He had a personal foul actually in the Penn State game. So it's going to get nasty. But this is far and away the best front seven that Oregon has had to face up to this point. Indiana is slightly undersized. I've seen their coaches. They got their defensive coordinator on Twitter at 11 p.m. at night tweeting about, our guys are undersized. Yeah, we'll see. I'm like, damn, okay. I didn't know. We're at that point in Twitter where coaches are just talking trash. It's like the Lane Kiffin effect or something. Indiana, they do a lot of stunting because they are undersized. So that means they're going to slant their D-line. They're going to move them, meaning that, hey, this, Wheeler at defensive tackle might be in the A gap, and as the ball snaps, boom, he slants into the B gap, and you have maybe a linebacker or someone else coming down to plug that gap that he just left. So when you do a lot of that, it's kind of high risk, high reward, where it's like, yeah, we might confuse the offensive line and they might miss this block because they thought I was going to be in the A gap and I slanted over to the B gap, and you get in the backfield for a TFL. So that's the high reward. The high risk part is when you start slanting guys and moving them and you're doing stunts and you're plugging linebackers in. If the Oregon offensive line can pick those blitzes up and those stunts up, well, your second line of your defense, the linebackers, aren't really there. So now you're kind of one-on-one. So you got De'Aaron Hill one-on-one with Indiana safeties. That's the type of matchup you want to get into if you were Oregon. So like I said, and I think it's one of those things, the Indiana defense is going to just live by that and die by that. Yeah, we're going to get gashed a couple times because they are going to, it's called creasing the stunt. If you catch the stunt and you crease that hole and there's a wide open hole, well, that's bad for the defense, obviously, but you might get in the backfield and mess them up a couple times. Now, I really do like Lewis Moore, number 7, Indiana safety. He will fly down in the box when Indiana's running all these stunts and slants, and he makes a ton of tackles in the open field. It's like just under 12% missed tackle rate, which is really good for a safety on its own right, but the positions he's been put in, and he still makes those tackles, I've been very impressed with that. So I think those matchups are something to look for, but I think it's a make or break battle for both teams up front. Offense, defense, let's see who can establish the run game and who can rely on that all game long. My number one battle to look out for on Saturday, Illinois' pass protection versus Ohio State's pass rush. Now, Illinois quarterback Luke Altmyer has been under distress, to say the least, this season. Through 6 games, 19 sacks. Good God, brother. We got to get you a new offensive line out there in Champaign. Now, Ohio State doesn't have exactly like an elite pass rusher. They don't have a Chase Young, a Bosa brother, anything like that. But they got some dudes up front. Caden Curry plays pretty much every single position on the defensive line, it feels like. Patricia loves moving guys around, and he has been high production, high motor, just a really good, gritty football player. You know what I'm saying? But the number one thing that Illinois needs to do is stay in front of the sticks. If they start to get in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, boy, it's going to be a bad day for Luke Altmyer, and he's going to find himself in the dirt because Ohio State's 3rd down blitz package is stuff that nightmares are made out of for an offensive lineman. Matt Patricia is a straight up mastermind, and he will it's called simulated pressure. So he'll have 6, 7 guys pressed up. And I've seen him have Arvell Reese. He will have Sonny Styles. He will have Caleb Downs all on the line of scrimmage with defensive linemen. And the offensive line has to guess and pick and choose who's actually going to blitz, who's going to drop out. And there's a lot of last second thinking. So quick reaction and being put in a pickle has not been kind to the Illinois offensive line so far this year. Now, there is the factor that Luke Altmyer has some really good legs. He can get outside of the pocket and he can scramble. The only problem with that is Ohio State has the best QB spy in the entire nation. Arvell Reese has acceleration that nobody else has, that very few people in the NFL even have. And that's why he's going to be a first-round draft pick. So there's not a whole lot that I like in this matchup for Illinois. The number one thing that you have to do is you just have to live in 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2. You start getting into those 3rd and longs, it's going to get real ugly for you. So those are my top 4 matchups to look out for in the Big Ten this weekend. I hope you guys enjoy. We'll be back next week with more. And also, Indiana, Oregon post-game show will be out on Monday. Appreciate you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.